September 11th, 2011. They were just 11.
Good evening. If you were old enough to remember, it is a day you will never forget. Just say the word September 11th and one is instantly taken back to that exact moment in time when they first heard about it. It was a day that changed the world, changes that would continue in the decade to follow. Our nation would go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and 10 years later, we still have boots on the ground overseas. Some of those boots are worn by family, friends, neighbors in our communities. Boots like those worn by Army Sergeant Devin Snyder of Cohocton and Marine Lance Corporal Zach Smith of Hornell. Both were killed while fighting for our freedoms in Afghanistan. Both were in the 6th grade when those towers fell. And as Sean Carroll discovered, both lived just 20 miles from each other. On September 11th, 2001, they were just 11 years old.
When you're 11, this is the stuff that matters. Playing in the street with friends.
Hey, I'm videotaping you.
Birthday girl.
Your sister's second birthday party or her first haircut.
Be good, Gracie.
There's basketball games, soccer games, football games.
Keep going, Zach!
Fun with friends and family. Then, when life appeared normal, it happened.
There's people jumping out of windows.
We heard a big bang.
I was thrown to a window.
I was told to get my stuff and head to New York City, and that was it.
Zach's dad is a state trooper.
And before I left, Zach came in from school, saw me with all my suitcases and everything, and wanted to know what was going on. And I said, I've got to go to New York City. And at that time, obviously, he didn't know anymore. He probably knew less than I did, being he was a kid and he was in school all day. And he just, for just lack of a better term, he just lost it. He begged me not to go. He begged me, and he was crying. He said, please don't go, Dad, please don't go.
It was unusual for him to be breaking down, even at that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why it caught me completely off guard. Completely off guard, because he just completely broke down and begged me not to go with tears and all.
How that day changed 11-year-old Zach Smith is only now becoming clear.
Zach took it a whole different way.
The boy who'd always dreamed of being a Marine?
When he was younger, just dressing up in his Uncle Matt's Marine camis when he was 5 or 6.
Now had a reason to see that dream through.
And it just seems from that day on, his love for the Marine Corps just grew and grew and grew and grew. A lot of it right underneath our nose, and we didn't know it.
With Dad being a state trooper, there's an interest to help people and all that. And Zach just really, no matter what it was, he was going to help people.
And if you open it, we found all this stuff.
Whether he meant to or not, Zach left behind clues that begin to tell his family just how profound the impact of September 11th was for him.
But this is how strongly he felt about this.
A cardboard box in the attic was actually a target. A young boy sharpened his skills with Grandpa's .22 and the enemy in his sights.
I mean, this is just a young boy.
Inside the box are mementos that serve to motivate a dedicated and sensitive Marine. As a boy, he bought this dollar store figurine of the Twin Towers and kept it forever. As a young man, before heading off to boot camp, he brought his family to where the towers once stood.
And the way he looked at Ground Zero, he had his hands up on the fence and just looking. You knew, oh my gosh, he's looking at this so different than we are. You know, we are like devastated, but he is, I got to do something about this, and I'm going to.
That desire to help, that desire to fix what happened on September 11th took Marine Lance Corporal Zach Smith to Afghanistan. For U.S. Army Sergeant Devin Snyder, there were slightly different factors at play. Here in Cohocton, the Snyder family's military history dates back to the Civil War. Snyder's fight to protect what they love, and even an 11-year-old Devin was no exception.
She's feisty, very feisty little girl. And she had the strength about her that I couldn't explain. I didn't have it. I didn't know what it was. I don't try to explain things I don't know.
The blonde hair, the blue eyes, the skinny limbs, it disguised just how tough this 11-year-old was. If you picked on her kid brother Damien, you'd find that out. Try to race her and she'd beat you, wearing boots, not sneakers. On the soccer field, she attacked.
Very competitive. She knew
She knew she wanted to play offense and not defense. She even told the coaches when she got to JV University, I will not play defense.
Yeah, she was going to set the ground rules right there, or tried to.
Looking back on September 11th, Devin Snyder reacted the way those that knew her would expect.
She was very angry. I remember that, you know, thinking about how people can do this to other people, and how I remember her making a sign. She had painted a picture of like the flag, and then on it has the words, "United we stand."
As she grew, the trophies, ribbons, and medals added up, but always ended up stuffed in a box and hidden from view. These races and games were over. They'd lost their appeal. Devin set her sights on new hurdles to be cleared.
I had no idea that really she was that determined about the Army, but she said, and I asked her later on, she wanted a challenge.
She wanted to be in military police. She wanted to get out, take the state troopers test, and just keep moving on.
Dad was a Navy man. Older sister Natasha followed the same path, but Devin, she was Army strong, and kid brother Damien strived to keep up.
He has actually told me he followed her.
In the Army, the awards kept coming for Snyder.
She won 15 boards. They finally had to stop sending her to the board because she won them all the time.
Those that knew her didn't question her toughness. An Army captain she pulled over for driving drunk did.
He so much as said so later on that he did not think that this blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl was going to be writing him a citation. And she did it. So needless to say, she dyed her hair brunette, so she would be taken more seriously.
But she always wanted to go to Afghanistan because of 9/11. I don't know, but she always wanted to go to make a difference.
To help people.
To help people and to make a difference.
And to protect us. She goes, "I'm here to protect you." She'd say it kiddingly, but I knew she meant it.
In January 2010, 19-year-old Zach Smith returned home to Hornell after barely 1 month in Afghanistan.
Never in a million years did I expect what I saw.
In June 2011, 20-year-old Devin Snyder returned home to Cohocton after barely 3 months in Afghanistan.
We knew there were great people,
absolutely.
But I guarantee everybody in the community came out. Everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a person home.
Trooper Chris Smith led the way just in front of Devin and her family.
You can't do enough for what has happened, and I just want to make sure that their daughter had the same thing that my son had.
We have 2 beautiful children with great smiles.
When they learned about Devin, the Smiths instinctively reached out to the Snyders.
The first thing that she said when I came in the door, Deneen said, "I now know the true meaning of pain." And I said, "Yes, you do."
It's nothing compared to losing a child. I mean,
That knock on the door was the worst day of our lives.
Their parents. Taking care of Zach always came naturally, but this doesn't feel right. Looking at him brought nothing but joy. Now, the pain is unavoidable. It's the same for the Snyders. And now there's a new pain that comes with thinking about that September morning 10 years ago.
If it had not been for that day, I don't know as if we would have even been there. We may have been somewhere else, but we would not have been there. And I don't think that she would be there.
I agree, 100%.
September 11th, 2001. We all remember, and for our own reasons. These families hope you remember for 2 more reasons. Zach and Devin. On that day, they were 11.
When we return, she was the love of his life, and his death made her a teenage widow. Then 2 families that lost so much ask why. And next, it was you who comforted these families when they needed it most. If there were ever any doubts about our community's support for the military, they were erased when Zach Smith and Devin Snyder returned home. Erased by patriotic displays meant to thank heroes for their service and families for the ultimate sacrifice. Families who were comforted by an emotional outpouring of patriotism and love.
In June, this community made sure Devin Snyder's family knew how they felt. At the airport, they said thank you. At every overpass, they stood at attention. At intersections in small towns, she was saluted. In Wayland, Snyder's old classmates wept as she passed by. And in Cohocton, Snyder's neighbors made sure it was a hero's welcome.
We knew there were great people,
absolutely.
but I guarantee everybody in the community came out. Everybody.
Yeah,
I don't think there was a person home.
I had to stop. And what got me was the little kids, you know, the ones that, Devin, you're my hero, and we love you, Devin, and, you know, they stand this high.
Comparing this all-American display brought about a tragically ironic thought.
The support of patriotism we've seen today is way far exceeds 9/11 in this community.
Chris Smith drove that state trooper car in front of Snyder and her family.
Never in a million years did I expect what I saw.
The year before, he recalls the similar welcome his son Zach received on a frigid January evening.
You saw but you don't understand what we see when we look out the window, and people are crying that we've never even seen before, and it was, you know, for Zach it's 5 degrees and there's people with candles.
It makes me feel that if there was a time at 2 a.m., I could probably call 1,000 people and they would drop what they were doing to take care of whatever we needed.
Snyder's return home was when the community said, "Thanks, we feel your pain too." At a public memorial service, the community said, "Goodbye." And at the cemetery, where she was laid to rest, the Snyders need only glance up to see how special their daughter was to so many of us.
Ann and Zach were married in 2009, about 6 months before Zach was deployed to Afghanistan. By January 2010, at the age of 18, she was a widow, realizing at such a young age the pain of loss and sacrifice. Sean spoke to her recently for the first time.
I used to come every day, like clockwork, maybe sometimes several times a day. I guess here you can talk to him out loud and you don't feel like you're talking to yourself. So in a way you do feel him more. I guess it's having a piece of him with me all the time. Like I have his wedding ring. With me all the time. I haven't taken it off since he was deployed.
I guess you could say young love grew up pretty fast. In high school, Zach knew he found the woman he'd love forever. Ann was a year younger and fell hard for the boy with a big smile and an even bigger heart.
Everything he did, he put his whole heart and soul into it.
Through football games and proms, Ann knew Zach was going to be a Marine.
He said, "I'm sorry, but no girl's ever going to go get in the way of me and my dream." He didn't mean to hurt me, but that's just how strongly he felt for his dream.
As they grew closer, she realized why.
When we went to visit Ground Zero, he just hung on that fence, and the look in his eye was indescribable. Just pure sadness, and like he wanted to do something about it. He was Mr. Fix-It, all right. That's probably how 9/11 affected him so much. He saw what it was doing to our country.
Understanding Zach is a lot easier than understanding what he left behind. A teenage widow. The juxtaposition of two words that just never sounds right.
I feel like it shouldn't happen. I've actually had people say to me, "Well, why would you get married so young?" Well, it wouldn't make a difference because whether we were married or not, I still would have lost him. But an 18-year-old widow, it's just wrong. Because no one should be killed at 19.
There is little doubt in this young woman's mind why she's here now. She loved a man who loved his country, but she can't help thinking how that day, September 11th, led her to this day.
I do, because Zach wouldn't be gone. I don't know where Zach and I would be right now, but we wouldn't be at a cemetery. This isn't even a declared war, which makes me sick a little bit that my husband was killed and it wasn't even a war. It's an operation. I do directly link it to 9/11. I do. It just doesn't make sense. It needs to end.
September 11th, 2001. As we all struggled to understand the events of that tragic day, how many of us thought that it would hit so close to home 10 years later? On that tragic day, Devin Snyder and Zach Smith were just 11 years old. When we set out to tell their stories, we never expected their families to express such passionate feelings about the cause for which their loved ones died. Feelings to be expected with such a loss. Feelings that, for that very reason, should not be ignored.
In the Snyders, you find a family that spent generations defending our country. The War Memorial in Cohocton is proof of that. Ed Snyder did 2 tours in the Persian Gulf with the Navy. At Devin's funeral, her sister and younger brother were in uniform. You can't question this family's love for our country, but they've got questions for our country.
It's been 10 years, and we haven't made, to me, any progress at all. And we're losing great people. And she could still be alive over here, making a difference for our communities. Take a step back and ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Are we right? Are we accomplishing anything? Is this worth it to send these people over there, these kids over there, and great kids with a lot of future ahead of them, smart kids, and lose them for what's the cost?
Today, just today, August is the deadliest month in Afghanistan. 66 military personnel were killed. I mean, I want our country to thrive. I look at a flag and I think of our military, personnel. Devin's now a part of that flag, and we need to protect ourselves.
I don't disagree one bit for going over there.
Nope.
The only thing I disagree about is we've been there too long.
And for those wondering, is this a new feeling?
No, I think I've always felt the same. Yeah. If we're gonna go to war, let's go to war and do what we need to do and get out and come home.
At the Smith home, a New York State trooper now admits that growing up, he was afraid of joining the military. When it comes to Zach, his fear was mixed with pride.
I was terrified, and I'm not proud to say that, but I'm not going to ever sugarcoat why I didn't join, because it would take away from why he did join. I didn't have the guts to do it, and I'll be point blank, I was terrified of the thought of that. I mean, how can you not be proud of him doing something that I know I didn't have the guts to do? No, I don't remember anything. I just remember.
Together, 2 families forever bonded by a common pain are asking questions that have no answers.
I think I'm speaking for all of us. How many lives would we still have if we could fight the way that we were supposed to fight? Why is this happening? And, and you can say why and how come, and you can talk about the plan and all that stuff, but when you're sitting thinking about what we've lost, it's awful hard to just sit there and swallow it and say, well, glad that he had 19 years of great life, but we say, what more could he have done? What more could have Devin done? Right.
Questions without answers. Questions these families ask for the next loved one who has to feel these proud but painful emotions.
September 11th, 2001. If you remember that day, you remember where you were when terrorism struck our shores. You remember the courage of those who responded that day and the days to come. You remember the patriotism expressed by your neighbors, your family, your friends. In the years to come, we would all remember those who fought for that day, and, like Zach and Devin, those who died for that day. Perhaps sometime on September 11th, or on any day, we can all pause for a moment to remember, and each in our own quiet way, say thanks. Our thanks to Sean Carroll for bringing us the story of Zach and Devin, and reminding us all of those who continue to share the sacrifice from September 11th.